Good evening, everyone that's watching. Baruch Hashem. Okay, we are ready to start. Yes, Rabbi Fegelstock? Chaim on my leftover seltzer.
Yes.
So, probably most of the people in my community actually don't know that I'm one of the board members of the ORB. One of the things I do on the side, just when I have free time and I'm bored, good evening, Randy, shalom. So I actually, years ago, felt that the kashrus in South Florida needed some more involvement of the community rabbis. I decided to get involved. It's a purely volunteer position. The Rebbe would often say that we have to give charity and money, 10% of your wealth to charity, and you have to give meiser, you have to give a tithe of your time to charity. So for me, the time that I spend involved with the ORB and kashrus is my giving charity with my time. And a few months ago, we're involved in hiring a new executive director for the ORB. It was a long search, an extensive search that was not easy. There were some very qualified candidates, but clearly the best candidate out there, truly someone with a tremendous amount of experience and qualifications, is sitting before us tonight, Rabbi Fegelstock, who, he's not expecting me to say this, but who has definitely earned my respect and admiration as someone with tremendous knowledge in kashrus and tremendous commitment to the standards and to the quality of the kashrus in Florida. And so it's truly, for me, it's an honor to have him on with us on our weekly conversations, because he's truly, in my opinion, he's truly involved in bringing up and ensuring that the quality of the kosher in South Florida is truly at the highest levels that it could be. So we're lucky to have him with us tonight. We're going to get to hear some inside information, some firsthand insight and information on the status of the different kosher industries and what's going on in the kosher world. And it's going to be, obviously, we're open to any questions. If you have any comments, you can either post on Facebook or on lifelongjewishlearning.com, and we will share the questions with Rabbi Fegelstock as they come. Hold on. Rabbi Fegelstock,
Yes.
Introduce yourself. Give us your life story. Tell us where you're from. Introduce yourself, please.
Okay, so my name is Levi Fegelstock. I am originally from Vancouver, Canada. I was born there and grew up there. I left only for a few years to go to yeshiva, but in general, I was originally from Vancouver. Started my kashrus life there, and I was actually in Hungary, learning to become a teacher. At that time, they called me at a hot dog packaging plant in Vancouver to supervise and to package hot dogs. So that's where I started. Started down in the hot dog packaging, and here we are 13, 14 years later in a whole nother side of the world and a whole nother, not packaging hot dogs anymore, but we're still having a good time, and we're still keeping kosher and making sure that the whole community is able to keep kosher as well. I live here in a little bit south of Rabbi Denberg in a community called Inverary, where the president and CEO, Rabbi Lieberman of the ORB and of the community local shliach here, is the rabbi, and thank God we have our kids, have 5 kids, and Baruch Hashem, everything's been going very, very good. I told Rabbi Denberg, I should preface this, I once went to teach, they asked me in a school to come teach, I think it was 4th graders or 3rd graders about kosher. And I brought in a bunch of legal and technical, and I totally lost the kids within 3 or 4 minutes. Something maybe a crowd like this would enjoy more, but maybe I would give you guys what I give the kids in grade 4, and then I'll lose you guys. So I'm gonna have to ask Rabbi Denberg to do a lot of the asking, and I'll try to answer it to the best of my possibility.
Okay, so my first question for you is, knowing your background and knowing where you grew up. So I always get comments about the fact that I went into the family business. My father was a rabbi, and I continued the family traditions and became a rabbi. So I know that your father runs the Vancouver kosher, what's it called now, British Columbia Czech kosher. I'm not sure
It
what
used
the
to be
name is.
called BC Kosher. Today it's called Kosher Czech.
Kosher Czech, British Columbia kosher, not Czech. Okay,
Yeah.
kosher Czech. So you grew up in a home where kashrus and keeping kosher was the family business, so to say. Um, and then you decided to follow in your father's footsteps. So what is that like for you?
So for me, I don't really feel I kind of joined the family business. I kind of took whatever job it was, and thank God, just with my I guess I don't know, people liked me or whatever it was. I don't know. Maybe I fooled enough people along the way that as I said, I started down in the bottom, and I really, really worked hardest and worked very hard. I always had a passion for both food and halacha, and these were very twinable passions together with the job. My father is very, very, how would I say, religious when it comes to kosher. But he's very also, he has his ways when, I can try to get the right word. He's a stick-to-itiveness when it comes to kosher. I'll never forget when I first joined kosher here in South Florida. Until that time, I was working for my father. My Zaidi pulled me into his house in Montreal and told me, you should know, until now, you worked for your father, and your father always and only cared about kashrus. When I give you a bracha, that you should stay the same way and only care about what's most important, and that's kashrus, and leave the rest of the ins and outs to everybody else.
That's a beautiful blessing. And I think you're living up to it, which is good.
Thank you.
Thank God. Baruch Hashem. Okay, so I already see some questions coming in on Facebook that are good, but I want to start with a very important question, which is, and I actually got this privately before the program started, which is, could you explain why do we even need a kosher certification? Is it just some religious, rabbinic markup to make money off of restaurants? It's a fairly, to be honest, the concept of a kosher certification is a relatively new Jewish invention. If you went to Russia 200 years ago in Eastern Europe, there was no ORB or OU or OK, etc. So why is the world different today? Why do we need kosher certifications?
So in the early 1900s, there was still no kosher certification. There was actually someone by the name of Bera Levi, Oliver Shalom, who was Rabbi Levi, Oliver Shalom's father, who started what they called kashrus laboratories. Until a certain point, kashrus was, they would look at the back of the label, say, okay, flour, water, margarine, okay, these crackers are okay, we could go ahead and buy it. That's the way it used to be. And there was actually whole institutions in New York that would actually review the packaging. And then when they realized that lines and I shouldn't say kosher, but manufacturing facilities were being used for other things, they decided, okay, we're going to do a laboratory. We're going to test things to see, is there dairy, is there meat? And eventually they realized that they're going to have to start a certification, because if not, companies do many other products. And I could give you examples on end, but a good example is glycerin. Glycerin is almost in every product today. All your children's medications, that liquidy sweet liquid, the base is actually glycerin. The chewiness of your kind bars.
What is glycerin?
I'm about to tell you. Glycerin, and it's also the kind bars. If you look, at also a lot of them have glycerin. A lot of products have glycerin. Now, glycerin is actually refined oil, where they refine it even more, and they continue. Just put it into layman's terms, they basically boil it oil until they're able to get just to take out all of the normal oily substance, like almost like a sweet substance. There's no nutritional benefit or anything like that in that glycerin. Now they happen to do it in most places. They'll do it in soy. I've seen it done in Brazil. I believe it was soy, and in Thailand I saw it being done in palm oil. Now the problem is that is very good and nice, but what happens is that they need to use the same equipment a lot of times for glycerin, which is derived from meat, from lard and from meat fat. It's a cheaper, because what happens is soy and palm could get expensive depending on the demand. Waste, like tallow, is usually quite cheap. So now they actually had a massive problem, starting with the coronavirus, was a lot of companies were looking for cheap glycerin for the sanitizers. So there are a lot of companies started manufacturing on the same equipment. They would be manufacturing non-kosher tallow gelatin. Sorry, non-kosher tallow glycerin. Therefore, making the glycerin not kosher. So I could have a glycerin which it says it's a palm glycerin, which is only basically has palm oil in it. And if you look at the ingredients, it's the only thing it's going to say. But meanwhile, it's being manufactured on the same exact line that pure not kosher was manufactured on. And you could, even if it's called vegan, it still does not mean that it was kosher, because previously it was used for meat, therefore deeming the line not kosher. The same applies to many ingredients also. If you ever look at the back of a label and you see natural flavors, that could be literally anything. A flavor, I've been to a flavor factory, you're talking well over 4,000 or 5,000 ingredients, and they'll take anything. I actually was in Haiti, and they make something from wood. They boil wood to get the oil out of it, and the oil is called vetiver oil. As a matter of fact, your pure perfumes have something called sandalwood oil. Vetiver is used as a replacement of sandalwood oil. Now, this oil is extremely expensive. The vetiver is about $70,000 a barrel, and the sandalwood is like double that. So that specific oil, why was I in Haiti to make it kosher? Because it's used in asparagus flavor. So if I tell you you get wood oil in your asparagus flavor, you would think I'm crazy. But the fact is that flavors and colorings could a lot of times, especially flavors, could come from anything. So it's very hard to, or you have natural color could come from a carmine beetle. It's called, sorry, it's not, it comes from a beetle, the flavor is called carmine. So you think, hey, natural color, that's great. But no, it could be pure not kosher. So that's why kosher agencies were instituted. That's on the manufacturing level. If I could, I know I'm talking a little bit too much.
You're getting to the technicals, although it's fascinating because yes, natural flavors can be anything. Yeah.
I want maybe now also to maybe answer about the restaurants. I know a lot of us here in South Florida, we hold very close and very proud of our local restaurants. Now today, actually just today, I was visiting a vegan restaurant, and I was called to the restaurant because they said, hey, it's vegan. All the Jews are eating here. It's all kosher. And I went in there, and I'm sorry to disappoint a lot of people, but it wasn't kosher. There were a lot of different items there was non-kosher, balsamic vinegar. There's a lot of other non-kosher products. So that's why we have that oversight.
So we're jumping out of order, but since you already brought it up, someone actually already asked on Facebook about if a vegetarian diet is preferable if you don't have access to kosher meats. And you're sharing about the different issues that could be in the vegetarian restaurant. You can elaborate on that for a second if you want.
Okay, so kosher. So you could go against kosher laws even if you kept vegetarianism or veganism, because kosher law is not only meat and milk. Yes, it's an excellent start, and it's a good place for someone trying to keep kosher to start. But a good eventual place you want to get to is, even rice being cooked by a Gentile could present a problem for kosher. So to say vegetarian or veganism is kosher would be incorrect. But yes, it's probably a fairly good start and a good way to at least get started.
Okay, and going back to what we were saying. So in ancient times, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, food items were far less processed and far less complex ingredients than today. Like glycerin is probably a relatively new ingredient, I'm guessing. I never heard of it. I mean, the word sounds familiar, but I could not have told you what it was. Correct?
Yes,
You have another example of a new ingredient that didn't exist 50 years ago?
that's
Putting
a
you on the
potential.
spot.
Would you like to know one? Oh, no, no problem. One that has a kosher potential issue or just a crazy issue?
Well, it's for both. Start with the
So
crazy issue and then the kosher potentially.
I, um, I was shocked. I once went to a company, this was back in my days when I was still in Vancouver, and I come, it's at the end of a dirt road, it's full of sand, full of rocks, and I see a big grinder. And the whole company, all they do was grinding rocks. Apparently they were lime rocks, and that's what they were using. I think it has a calcium carbonate, I believe it's called, which is a filler that we see in a lot of different products. It's also used in your in antacids like Tums. It's a good calcium source, so we're eating ground rocks. I was also in Thailand recently, and to make silicone, it actually comes from glass. They grind up glass, dilute it, and then they dry that dilution back up, and that's what your silica is. And it's using actually as a flow agent. You'll see it in a lot of your spices. You'll see silica. That's its source. Unfortunately.
Let's hear a kosher issue.
So a kosher issue. So it's ancient as well. You look at soya sauce. Soya sauce has a starter in order for it to start the molding process. That's actually made in one company or two companies. It's a very old company in Japan that makes that starter. It's very secretive, and it's a bunch of different ingredients that go in there. And of course, that could be a potential kosher issue, like any other starter. Rennet is also a very big potential kosher issue, to the point where we actually have the rabbi adding the rennet at all cheese plants. The rennet, once upon a time, was actually from the stomach of a cow. As we have decided to be nicer to the cows in the past few years, it actually comes from a vegetarian source, but still, or a bacterial source. It doesn't come from necessarily the stomach of the cow. However, from a kosher perspective, it still presents a problem. It needs to have proper certification.
Interesting. Okay, so let's get to, so that's one reason why we need obviously kosher certification, because the products that are being used, ingredients are being very, very complex, right? Also, another issue is that we don't know. In the old days, you knew who you were eating by. Everyone knew the local innkeeper, the local tavern. Everyone knew the owner. Today, we travel. Today, people don't know each other as much. Okay, I see two people are asking about Hebrew National. We're going to get to. Let's go in order, just a little order. Tell us about the ORB a little bit, and then we'll talk maybe about some other organizations.
What would you like to know? The standard?
Well, first, how big is the ORB? I doubt that anybody watching tonight, besides for myself, knows how many facilities are under the ORB, how many restaurants, how many mashgichim does the ORB have?
So the ORB is, I believe,
the ORB is Orthodox Rabbinical Board of Broward and Palm Beach. Go on.
So the Orthodox Rabbinical Council of Broward and Palm Beach, Board of Broward and Palm Beach, ORB consists of, I think we're probably one of the largest in outside of New York. We're probably right around, I haven't done the exact count, similar to our good sister station in Miami called the KM. We work hand in hand on a daily basis for many array of different matters because of our close proximity. I think we have between, every day it's changing, especially during COVID, between 60 and 70 facilities we certify restaurants. I think we have over 70 mashgichim working for us full time, and then we have administrative staff of four people, 4.5, I would say. And most of them have been in kosher for many years in one way or another. And the ORB, we also have because we're what we call a local VAD, which is a community-based certification, we don't specialize in companies, but we do hold a portfolio for companies, most of them that are servicing our restaurants and our supermarkets. I think we have 9 or 10 supermarkets. And we have also 35 or 40 caterers as well. Again, these numbers change on a daily basis because we get new applications and they change it. So they're never going to be perfectly exact. And thank God it keeps us all very, very busy.
Okay, so what's the process? A restaurant wants to go kosher. What's the process of a restaurant becoming a kosher certified restaurant?
So the first,
briefly, run us through the process.
I'll take you through the technical, not more of the kosher perspective. So it's a little boring. I'll just give a quick technical perspective.
A quick answer.
Quick answer. We get application online. I do everything online. I'm very tech. Everything has to be online, on the computer, on the cloud. We get application online. We do right away. We do a complimentary visit just to get to know them, to get to know their place, to see what's going on. You know, where is he holding? What is he looking for? And at that point, we will give him a picture of what he needs. So if the owner is not Jewish, so we'll need more visits because he doesn't know kosher as well. If someone's more educated in kosher, they would have a little less visits. We'd have to explain them the pricing based on the amount of visits and the overhead costs for the ORB. And at that point, we would verify all their ingredients to make sure they're kosher, and to change any of their menus in one way or the other, also to make sure that all what they're producing is kosher. And then from the back end, we would have to do the nitty-gritty setup of both koshering a lot of their equipment and to make sure that a lot of their equipment could meet our kosher standards. And we would verify their wine, their liquor, and anything else. And then we would break the news to them that in most cases they have to be closed on the Sabbath. And then they say thank you, but no thank you.
Do a lot of restaurants inquire about becoming kosher and then just give up after they see how expensive and complicated it is?
Usually it's not the expense. Usually it's the complications. Kosher is relatively affordable from a marketing perspective. If I tell anyone that they could hire a Facebook marketer for a few $100 a month, they would jump on it. Kosher is somewhere around there as well. So it's really and your marketing tool, thank God, I think in South Florida, Rabbi, your numbers are probably way better than mine. How many Jews are there?
In South Florida total?
Yes.
I don't know, probably few 100,000 Jews.
A few 100,000. I could tell you right now that if the rabbi had a few 100,000 likes on his YouTube page, he would be making a lot of money from the ads. So yes. Thank God, you all of a sudden open up your market to a lot more people when you become kosher. So it's usually not the pricing; it's usually the closing on Shabbos, or the requirements to have a mashgiach there the whole day. In some cases, they want to do it their way and no one else's way. But we get, I would say, out of every 5 applications, 1.5, 2 of them actually end up becoming certified.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. It's a little bit touchy because there's 2 people in our community, actually, this is relevant to. I had a conversation with someone. So there are people that are good bakers and good chefs, and they make food at home. They bake food at home, and I won't eat it. I've never tasted it. I have people that I'm very close in our community. I love them dearly. But we can't, we wouldn't serve their food in shul. We wouldn't, because it's not under a kosher certification. Why would we not be able to certify someone keeps the kosher home? Why could we not certify their kitchen as kosher under the ORB?
So first of all, I'd like to tell your community members that don't feel bad. I'm in the same boat. In our synagogue, we only allow kosher food inside. As I said before,
certified food.
Certified food.
Yeah.
So I have a certain passion for cooking, and I run my smoker every single Erev Shabbos. My smoker's running, and I make a really good smoked. And anyone could probably PM me when they're done. I'll give you the recipe. I make a delicious smoked herring with onions every single week. But unfortunately, I can't bring it to shul. I can't serve it at the kiddush because it's not certified. So no matter
It's
how,
kosher, but it's not certified kosher.
as Rabbi Lieberman would always tell me, no matter how big of a high roller you are, it doesn't make a holy roller doesn't make a difference. It's too bad. Why can't we certify a home? That's an excellent question. I think in order to understand that, you have to understand the concept of kashrus and the whole concept of being kosher. Now I sound like a rabbi answering a question with a question. So the concept of kosher is what we call mersis, that the non-Jewish person or even the Jewish business owner is always worried that the rabbi is going to come knocking on their door to take a look at what's going on. So when we go ahead and certify a facility, sometimes they'll have kosher and non-kosher. Sometimes they'll have dairy and non-dairy. How do we know that we don't mix the lines? How do we know that when we're not there during our visit, that everything is going on just all good and fine? It's a concept called, where we first have the contract, which we're hoping they're caring about, but also the concept of mersis, of being worried that the rabbi will come in and see that they're doing something wrong, and that then they'll be not trustworthy anymore. So that worriness and that worriness of not trustworthiness is one of the main concepts of kosher. And I used to do this myself, actually. At one time I did work for an agency which they happened to certify somebody's house. And I would go outside, I would have to call the person an hour beforehand. I knocked on the door, waited for an hour. Her husband wasn't home, this person wasn't home, and by the time I was let in, they should have done what they wanted. So we need that in order base for a kosher agency is to have the rabbi be able to roam around at any time he wants and to do as he feels comfortable, both in the company. That uniqueness unfortunately is not able to happen in somebody's house. A lot of times, and especially here in Florida, especially during COVID now, a lot of people are suffering and trying to meet. I think a little bit of the workaround, which I do offer in some of these cases, Rabbi, is we will say if you separate the garage from the house, you have to lock the garage for entrance to the rabbi, and the rabbi could come in whenever he wants. Then if we're able to put the proper processes and the proper procedures in that we felt comfortable with, and we would have free access to that location, there is a way that we another way you do it. And
I think you should put your headphones back on.
The battery's gone. I've been talking too much today.
Okay.
You really can't hear me?
No, you broke up a little bit, but it's okay. So they made the garage. That'll be a solution, perhaps. Okay, I'm getting a lot of questions.
Another solution is to do like what we call per production. We would come and kosherize your house. If you wanted to prepare something for a kiddush, we would have a mashgiach come kosherize your house and supervise whatever you wanted to make for the kiddush or for Rabbi Denberg and his family.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. A lot of questions are coming in on Facebook, which is great. Keep the questions coming. We'll try and address them. Some, I don't know if Rabbi Fagel doesn't want to answer, but we'll see. I'll start with some easy ones, okay? First of all, what would be a good resource online to see, or a website to check for kosher symbols and see what would be considered kosher?
So there's two websites that will direct you to. There is the CRC in Chicago, which does an extensive research on agencies, and you can look on their website, which is crc, I believe, .org, or Google it, you'll find it. And then you also have,
the CRC has a very good app as well that's on my phone. Highly recommended. CRC's app. Their website is crcweb.org. That's their website, crcweb.org.
There's also another organization called ACO, Association of Kosher Organizations. And all of the agencies on their website, they have a members list, but they don't have necessarily the symbols, acokosher.org, and you can see all of the agencies that we work hand in hand in on a daily basis. However, and I'm prefacing this by a legal disclaimer, the reason why you don't see a lot of agencies, like how come I didn't direct you to the ORB's website? A lot of agencies for legal purposes are worried about recommending one agency and not recommending another. So larger agencies are usually okay putting out such a list. Smaller agencies and local vadim try their best to stay away from it and keep it all on a case-by-case basis.
It's also a lot of time to research every single product and every single factory is tremendous manpower required, correct?
Yeah, indeed. But Rabbi Fishbane, who's the head of the CRC, happens to be the head of ACO as well. So he reviews a lot of agencies to see if they measure up to the standards set forth by all the agencies on the executive board.
So just to clarify, if you go to CRC's kosher symbols, every single recommended kosher symbol will be on there with the name of what it is and the website and the phone number if you have any questions about that particular product. It's also on your phone. I have it on my phone. I've used it a number of times. I'm in the store and you just go onto your phone right there and check it out. Okay, but a little bit more complex. Do you mind talking about Hebrew National? A few people have already messaged about Hebrew National. What is the status of Hebrew National? Are they kosher? Are they good? Even though I know people, kosher companies try to avoid talking about others in the public setting, but a lot of people are asking
I'll
about
talk about their certifying agency, but I will talk about a little bit about general slaughterhouses, and I cannot comment about Hebrew National specific slaughterhouse because I was never there. But one of the requirements of a kosher slaughter is to check every single cow, the innards, to make sure it's glatt and proper.
You want to explain what glatt is for a second?
Okay, so on the lungs of a cow.
When you say glatt kosher, explain it.
So glatt means that basically the lungs of the cow, and I'm not a sheikhet, so I'm not a kosher slaughterer, so I can't, I'm not tremendously well versed in this, but the basics of it is that the lungs of a cow have certain defects that will make the cow not kosher. It was able to see if the cow is an unhealthy cow. A cow has to be healthy, or any cat, or this would also apply, I believe, to lamb and other types of animals like that. The lungs of the cow, certain types of defects will make it not kosher. So therefore, you have to check every single cow, as well as some agencies. When glatt means that they're actually perfectly clean, to a certain extent. That's what we consider glatt. Glatt means clean. So it means the lungs of the cow are nice and shiny and clean.
Smooth.
And smooth. So therefore, it's always recommended to make sure that whenever you buy meat, it comes from a very well-respected agency, because they're doing their job properly, especially meat where there's so much money to be lost and to be gained that someone will just sometimes turn a blind eye to a major issue because, one bad cow, one non-kosher cow is a lot of money. As a matter of fact, I don't know if people know this, but slaughterhouses, one of their main kosher slaughterhouses, a big source of their income comes from not kosher meat, because the whole hindquarters is no good. And then you also have, which is a huge section of the meat, you also have a lot of cows which are not healthy, and that therefore they would be deemed non-kosher as well. So they all go to the non-kosher pile of beef. So therefore, it's always recommended very, very strongly to make sure you always have an excellent agency supervising your meat. I hope I answered the question sufficiently.
Okay, so Hebrew National is not up to that standard. Do they check to make sure it's glatt?
I have never visited, so I can't comment, but there is no reliable agency on their packaging. So as I said, you would need to have a reliable agency on top of your kosher meat.
Right, and on that note, the idea of like a K on most packages that just say kosher without a certification on it.
So K is actually very interesting because legally you cannot trademark a letter of the alphabet. So almost every kosher symbol, that's why it's called the kosher symbol, not kosher letter. So the OK has a circle around it. The OU has a circle around the U. Why don't they just put a plain U on it? Because you cannot trademark a letter of the alphabet That's my understanding. At least in Canada, that's the way it works. I think here in America, it's the same. Therefore, a plain K, because it's not trademarkable, anyone could put K on their label. I think here in America, in Canada, you can't. But in America, you can actually put kosher on it without legal ramifications, to my understanding.
Right. But it obviously, from a halachic perspective, is meaningless because there's no one that's actually verifying and certifying that it's actually indeed kosher and all the ingredients have been approved, etc.
So again, the answer to that is no. There are actually Chabad shluchim that use K as a symbol that it's kosher. I've seen it actually in a few places. So sometimes there is somebody behind the K, so you have to figure out who's behind that K.
Okay, so you'll verify. I've heard that Kellogg's is a kosher. They didn't change the K because they already spent millions of dollars on their label of their box. They didn't want to redo the packaging, and to change even one little symbol requires a whole process all over again in these massive companies. So it's under the KVH of New Hampshire, correct?
I think it's the OU they put out it, but I'm not sure. I have to look
I understand under the KVH, but when I asked the question, I was thinking about the Kellogg cereal, but that was in my head after I already asked the question. But in general, just a K is not considered
a K means you would have to verify where indeed who certifies it and if it's certified, because you don't know which agency is behind it. Anyone could be behind the K. Now, I was actually at a plant. I don't know if anyone heard of Jello. And on Jello, you have a plain K. And if you look at Jello's ingredients, it has gelatin. So they actually buy kosher certified gelatin, but no respectable agency would certify gelatin. So they put K on it to say that it's okay. All other ingredients are kosher, but it's not. I was actually in the plant.
So why were you in the plant if it's not certified? How does that work?
Because the same plant makes the Jello pudding, which is kosher.
So many plants are doing many, many different products. Some that are certified, some that are not.
Even Tropicana, they don't only process Tropicana; they process Coke. Tropicana is actually a Pepsi-owned brand, and they process Coke products in the same facility. They have 40, 50.
So Coke is renting the facility from Pepsi.
Nope, it's called co-manufacturing. They pay just to manufacture the product.
Okay, I'll ask you a question. How is Coke kosher? There's no OU or OK on the bottle of Coke.
On Coke, there is. On the top of the can, there's OU. On
the bottles of Coca-Cola, there's an OU on there?
On the bottles, I don't know. But Coke, a little bit about Coke. Coke,
please.
All soft drinks, or most soft drinks. The way it works is they all have a base, very, very thick base. As a matter of fact, the base is so thick, it's corrosive. You don't want to touch it. It's that thick. It's very high. I think it's a high pH. Could be. I'm maybe using the wrong term, but it is definitely not consumable in its raw form. They add a drop of the base. They'll add water, bubbles, sugar, and maybe one or two other additives. I don't remember offhand right now that are not kosher questionable. Therefore, in most countries, some countries this is not true, but in most countries, Coke is accepted without a certification because the base itself is kosher, and because all the other ingredients, sugar, water, bubbles, also do not need to be certified. It's viewed as kosher even without the symbol on it because the base is kosher. That does not apply to all sodas, because some sodas the base is not kosher.
So I remember hearing that Rabbi Landau was one of the 7 people in the world that knew the ingredients of the Coca-Cola recipe. Is that true? That it's like a secret ingredient that's not known in the world. It's not recorded. It's not documented anywhere.
So I don't know. Rabbi Landau never called me to tell me. But even if he did, could be he did. I don't know the details. But again, a flavor has so many different ingredients. As a matter of fact, I once visited a company and they said, "Rabbi, this is an ingredient that goes into Coke, so we can't." They showed me the ingredients. They said, "You can't tell anybody because it's private. It goes into Coke." Now that product now goes into Coke. The person seeing that ingredient to Coke is going to accept it because it comes from my agency, a reliable agency, but they're not going to know what went inside of that. So even though it's part of the Coke base, they could have 20 different ingredients. The Coke base could be made up, let's say, of raspberry, strawberry, and peach flavor, but they don't know what goes inside of those flavors, which could be a whole bunch of other ingredients. So they may know the main flavors, not necessarily do they know the I would say the organic and the natural flavor where it came from originally.
And one more thing, since we're talking about Coke and kosher, the kosher for Passover Coke, many know, is actually better. The big Coke experts, the gurus on Coke, say that
You want to know why?
kosher. Yes, tell us why the
I
kosher for
actually used
Pesach
to
Coke
do
is
the
better.
sugar for South Florida for the past 3 years for Coke.
You say again, you did what?
I supervised the manufacturing of Coke, of the sugar for Coke,
Okay.
for Passover in South Florida. The reason why it's better is because it comes from cane sugar, opposed from corn
Syrup.
syrup. Now, corn syrup is not as good of a quality, so it's not as healthy. The body doesn't process corn as well as it does sugar. As a matter of fact, I could be I'm wrong, but I saw this in a documentary where cows, American cows are nice and beefed up because they feed them corn. Nowhere else do they feed them corn. It actually puts E. coli into their system, which is unfortunate and is very deadly. That makes it into our food chain. However, so I just got a text from my father. He says Rabbi Landau knows all the ingredients.
Your father's watching.
I like to make a call out to my father. How are you? It's good to know you're watching. So I guess Rabbi Landau does know all the ingredients till its final base, till the products. But I try my best not to say something if I didn't hear it firsthand. So there you go.
Fagel Senior, hello. Your son's doing a great job in Florida. You should be proud of him. Okay. So that was correct. I heard that Rabbi Landau was one of the 7 people in the world that told the secret. I remember hearing one.
So though
Anyway.
for the Coke enthusiast, the people that love Coke, the ones from Pesach is usually better because it's actually
and it's amazing how much
sugar.
discussion we could have about Coke being kosher. People just take it for granted, and so many products that go into the Coke, from the sugar and where it's being made, etc.
Yeah.
Okay, so that takes me to the next question that I've been getting here on Facebook, is about the health of the food that we eat. I got 2 variations of the same question, but basically, does kosher food need to be healthy, and is having a healthy body connected to the mitzvah of keeping kosher?
Okay, so let me answer that. If pastrami is healthy, then we got to rethink the whole what we call healthy. So
Jackie Mason has a great spiel about, you go into a health store and all these like people. You want to see healthy people? Go into a deli in the Bronx and they're eating their pastrami sandwiches. Yeah. Go on, yeah.
Kosher, some people like to say kosher is healthier. I subscribe to the fact that not all kosher products are healthy. All food in moderation is okay for you, but there are many different ingredients which a health nut or a health freak will say is no good, and I would agree with it, and it's still kosher. With that being said, it's definitely better. There's another mitzvah in the Torah that says V'shmartem ma'od l'nafsheseichem, that you should watch out for your body, because the body is, I'm sure the rabbis explain to you in many different classes how it's the home of our soul. So there is, even though it's not a kashrus thing, a lot of times I will give extra care and extra push to companies that are healthy to become kosher, just because I think we need a lot more healthy kosher products. It's better for everybody. And that's, especially here in South Florida, we're very big into the shakes and to the South Beach diet and all that good stuff. It's very good to have proper kosher diet as well as a healthy diet.
Okay. And what about, is there any connection between kosher and the way the standards of how they treat the workers in the store, how they treat the animals? Really two different questions.
So I would say yes. Usually, most agencies, so you have, let's say, in every factory, you'll have a USDA inspection or FDA inspection, and they're just crossing the T's, dotting the I's, making sure everything is up to standard. However, from a kosher is a little unique. A lot of times I'll get involved in employee not being paid properly, even if it's a Gentile employer, no one not even working for kosher, they'll come to complain. We will actually address the owner. We're limited legally what we could do. I think COVID is also a very good example. We got a lot of complaints of people not wearing masks. You know, we're not health inspectors, we're not city inspectors, but the ORB took upon itself and was actually led a lot of kosher agencies and was one of the first kosher agencies to make sure that whenever there was a place that we got reports that they were not properly having proper PPE and proper attire for COVID, we actually sent them out emails reminding them of the guidelines. So we don't have the legal or basis to control, you know, all the how the employers are being treated, but we will call out, we will call up and stand up in a place where it needs to be done.
That's great. Uh, let's maybe wrap up if any more questions come in. Do you want to share with us any funny stories that have happened to you over your career in kosher? We were in the wrong place at the wrong time, or the right place at the wrong time, or something interesting you can share with us.
So I've learned that every time wherever I go, I find problems. So I'm always at the right place in the right time. I say it's the siyata deshmaya. It's God. I see God's hand every day, every time in my work. Thank God. I'll tell you one of the first stories is
You're breaking up.
I don't find a lot of funny stories, and just by the nature of my job, it's more of a serious inspection. The rabbi's here. In 2008, I believe, was my first time in Alaska. You could go look on a map at a place called Naknek, Alaska. If you could find it, I'll be very proud of you. I come there and I'm dressed in a tie, a suit, you know, all rabbied up, and I'm meeting with the director of sales for one of the largest fish companies in America. And as I'm discussing and talking with him a little bit about kosher and a little bit of what we're here for, a Native American child walks by and stops dead in his tracks and looks at me as if I'm like I don't know,
Eskimo.
No, it's Alaska, so now it's an Eskimo. As if I was I don't know, who knows what, some type of a lion from the Sahara Desert. I don't know what he thought I was. And I'm sitting there like, is it my yarmulke? What is it? And so the director of sales turns around and says, "Don't worry, Rabbi. He's just never seen a tie before."
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And we go to these crazy places, with places where they don't even see ties.
Uh-huh. You've been to a lot of places, obviously. Which countries have you been to?
Indonesia, Haiti, Thailand, Japan, France. I've been to a lot of states. Belize, Bahamas.
Wow.
All for kosher, I promise.
Okay.
Trinidad and Tobago.
Wow.
Brazil.
So what would you say is the hardest part of the whole process of keeping a kosher standard? What would you say is the hardest part of all that?
The hardest part about keeping kosher, well, see, here in 40, we have it very, very good. Thank God the ORB and the KM were all on our game, and we're making sure that, you know, that it's readily available. I grew up in Vancouver, where my father would buy us a chocolate bar on Rosh Chodesh, and that was our Rosh Chodesh treat, because we couldn't get kosher chocolate, Chalav Yisrael chocolate, as children in Vancouver. So growing up in a kosher home was always tough. We never necessarily had milk. Almond milk was often a replacement. My parents had sometimes used to go milk the cows. They told me I've never seen it, but they did apparently once upon a time. Thank God in Florida it's really grown. Big even here in Florida we have is where people have friends and friends want go eat out together and like, oh, my favorite sushi restaurant, or this place has an amazing steak, and like, oh, I can't have that steak, I can't have the T-bone steak. A lot of times that becomes very hard, but I think as the community grows here, we're going to have restaurants and places that are up to the same quality, if not better. And also, I think if we stand up as proud Jews, people will respect us a lot more and enjoy the steak and enjoy the food just as much as the same as in a kosher restaurant.
Guys, by the way, in Florida, when I was growing up in Florida, it didn't exist at all kosher, not in Broward County. I remember we went to New York, was the only time we would get ice cream. To get the ice cream was literally maybe once a year. It was like the biggest treat was to go to New York, to go to an ice cream store and get Chalabi ice
Yeah.
cream.
Now you can just Uber Eats it and that's it. No need to go
Yeah,
to
yeah.
work.
Ice cream with milk, but yes. Um, I had meant more from a agency perspective on an institutional level to ensure the standards of kosher on the community level. You ever find what's the biggest challenge that you find on a community level?
I I don't find it challenging. I find it to once you explain it to somebody, a lot of times they get up all upset. You're raising this. How come we can't do this? How come we can't do that? I find that if you take any owner or any person and you sit down and explain them what you're trying to accomplish, what you need to do, they're more than happy to help you, more than happy to be there. What's the hardest for me personally is I get a lot of calls about the home certification where people are really, really suffering, and it's almost the last ditch effort. I'm trying to work and trying to help them out. I usually will try to maybe put them in touch with a local synagogue that will let them use their kitchen to make that same product, and then we would go ahead and certify it. We really, really try. I just actually yesterday gave the certification to someone for a lot less than cost. Someone that can't afford rent, and he's trying out a new business, and he wanted to become kosher. So those are tough days for me when I come home and I'm like, I feel so bad for this person that I can't, just do everything, and I hope them the best. But those are usually the toughest.
Okay, I'm going to ask our last question. Someone asked. The question was if agencies could perhaps make something similar to a ration pack for Jewish travelers. I'm wondering, are there like accessible, almost like airplane meals, food that you could take with you on a like prepackaged vacuum
So
pack?
talking to the Florida community, Fort Lauderdale used to have it from, I believe it was Kosher Central and Aroma at one point, and so did Miami. Today that doesn't around. We are working right now diligently with the USDA certified meal delivery service, where you could order um, their meals. They do have the travelable meals, if that's the right word to use. A lot of the kosher stores also have a Meal Mart meals, but hopefully, please God, they're going to have fresh news. The local airport, we're actually working on it.
Broke up again. Fresh in the airports?
Fresh meals at Hudson News, which is the main New York, which is the main provider. We're working with a company diligently that already provides Hudson News, and we're trying to get in some kosher products as well.
It's great. That's beautiful. Okay. That'd be beautiful. Baruch Hashem. Thank you very much, for your time. It was very enjoyable to hear a little bit of the inside what's going on. It'd be good to see kosher food in the airport. Thank you. To everyone that's watching, you can always still message me your questions on kosher. I can forward them to Rabbi Fegelstock if need be, if I can't help you myself. I want to also just point out that you should be joining us next week. Every single night we have another class going on. Monday, Torah and Zip, and we're starting our positivity bias. Not this coming Tuesday, but the Tuesday after that. Free online 4-week course. Let's go onto our website. You can sign up for that 4-week course on positivity bias. We also started our summer raffle for $10,000 cash. If you want to support all the wonderful free programs we're offering, be very much appreciated. mychabadcenter.org/raffle to support our raffle and support all the work we're doing. Again, thank you to everyone that watched. Rabbi Fegelstock, thank you very much. I
Thank
say this sincerely. I think that the South Florida Jewish community is blessed to have you in the leadership position, directing us and taking care of the largest kosher organization around. There are others, but definitely by far way ahead of everybody else, ensuring the kosher standards of our community. And on behalf of that, I thank you very, very much. And Hashem should bless you to be successful
Amen.
in
Thank you.
everything that you do.
Amen.
Thank you very much. God bless you. And all of you, Laila Tov, thank you for joining us.